Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Soft Power Project. Today, I wanted to share with you a saying that I grew up with. It's a saying that I would often hear from elders, and I would see this in textbook and I would try to memorize it. But it really wasn't until these couple of years that I started to understand it fully. The saying goes, 塞翁失马，焉知非福. It means when the old man lost his horse, who's to say it wasn't a blessing? Now, it came with a story. In the village, there's an old man, and he has a horse. And one day, the horse wandered off and didn't come back. His neighbor went and comforted him, and the old man said, "Who's to say that this is not a blessing?" A few months later, the horse came back with another horse, and the neighbors went to congratulate him. And the old man said, "Who's to say this is not a misfortune?" Now, the old man has a son. He loves riding horses. And one day he rode the horse, fell off, and broke his leg. The neighbors went and offered their sympathy, but the old man said, "Who's to say this isn't a blessing?" About a year later, the war broke out. All the young men got drafted to war except for his son because of the injury. And because of that, both of them survived when a lot of young men died in the war. Now, obviously, with this story, it tells us that when you're in the eye of the storm, you really couldn't see the great lessons that you get to learn from this. And vice versa. Life gives you so many lessons in a way that you probably couldn't even tell when it's happening right then and there. But years later, you can reflect back and see what the lessons are. And because of that, I am going to reflect back in my life and tell you what were the lessons that I have learned from all the heartaches, all the anxiety and frustration and therapy sessions and self-development and all of that. I mean, I would say my life was pretty good. I grew up in a really good family. I didn't really have to worry about money growing up. I was privileged. I would say my life started to change when I was about 28, 29, got married, became a mom. And I remember during that time, I would often ask when I was praying that I just want to grow. I don't think I knew much about why I kept saying grow. I just felt like there was so much more in my life that I could do. And I wasn't doing it, but I needed something to happen. I want to grow. And I grew. I'm still growing. So I would say the first thing that I have learned is my relationship with money. Money and I had a very interesting relationship growing up. As I said, I grew up in a way I'd really find I was definitely privileged. My parents didn't have businesses, but my dad was an accountant and he took on like 2, 3 jobs when I was little. He had me when he was like mid 40s, and he already had some like assets and houses back then. So I was very lucky. I grew up in that environment where I really didn't worry and I didn't even notice that money was important. I get to travel abroad twice a year. So I think I grew up I knew that I was really lucky in a way that I felt a little guilty that I was lucky. But that also mean that my relationship with money has been sort of like I knew it's important, but I didn't appreciate it. So it's almost like a friend that I have, but I never really truly appreciated her. I took her for granted. So when I started working in my early 20s, I mean, I worked in the financial industry, I worked at sales, so I made okay money. And But I had no idea I had to save or invest or do all that, because in my head, I thought that the man that I will marry eventually will do all of that for me. And I just didn't know it was important. And fast forward to mid 30s after I got divorced. Oh, I was like, oh, okay. So I need to make money for myself now. And I started to understand research, like understand how to invest, how to actually create wealth for myself. And there were many times where I actually grew very desperate for money. So I had this friend where I initially will took her for granted. Then it was a friend that I would desperately need in my life. And obviously that created a lot of anxieties, fears, and it was not a very healthy relationship until now that I finally understand that money and I are really good friends, but it's not a codependent relationship where I absolutely need it to be happy, but I work hard at it and I would invest, I would save, but we keep at a very peaceful relationship. And obviously, I would say there's still some lessons that I needed to learn, but right now, money and I are good friends. We're good friends. We're peaceful. We're at peace with each other. And it really took a lot of lessons to truly get here. The second thing that I have learned from all the tears, anxiety, and all of that would be my relationship with myself. And these lessons were definitely not easy. I had a lot of failed friendships, romantic relationships. And to be quite honest, I think growing up, I was never someone who could have a lot of friends or have a lot of, you know, casual relationships. I took things very, very personally. I took things very seriously. Whatever people said about me, said to me, maybe even say just not about me, but just like they said it out loud, but I would took it personally. Yeah, I was a very sensitive child. I'm a very sensitive person. So everything is serious. One thing that people often say about me is like, don't take things so seriously, Sherry. I didn't know what that means because I'm like, well, it's personal. Everything's so personal. And I think it wasn't until later on that I realized that it's because I am just very insecure about myself. I took things very seriously because I attached myself to like every single relationship that I had, friendships or romantic relationships or my parents or everyone. So when anyone's in my life had entered my life, I would attach myself to them. And that would become part of my identity. So having all these, quote unquote, failed relationships or relationship that didn't work out really allowed me to understand, okay, like, Sherry, what are you doing? So why are you taking things so seriously? Why did that trigger you? Why are you mad at him for saying that when obviously he didn't just say that about you? Or why are you mad at her? Why are you jealous of someone who took the job, but the job that you didn't even want? Just all these different things that would trigger me. And I would start to really sit with that feeling and be curious about why these feelings comes up. And that allows me to learn so much about myself to this point where I know my peace is above all the most important thing in the world. And if I have anyone who loves me, will also appreciate and respect my peace. And yeah, it came with lots of tears and hard lessons, but over the years, I have learned so much about myself, my likes, my dislike, and how to regulate my nervous system. How do I respond to things without reacting? Obviously, I'm still learning that. I think it's an ongoing lessons, but at least I'm at the point where I'm really aware where I am emotionally. And the third thing I learned a lot would be self identity. And this kind of relates to the second thing, the relationship with myself. But self identity really comes from the lessons of the custody battle I was in and I'm currently still in, but I think the worst part of it really came from the first 4 years. So it has been about 6 to 7 years. That was the first 4 years was, oh my goodness, like it was rough, especially when it comes to my relationship with my kid. So during that time, she entered elementary school. So she was about 5 years old. Yeah, 5 years old, 5 to 9. Very little. And my goodness, there were so many times. Oh, I cannot even count how many times that is, like where she would cry and like I have all these messages where she would sob and she's just so upset and she didn't want it to be there. Didn't want it to be with her dad. She just wanted to stay with me. But as you know, if you're going through custody battle, you cannot not let the kid go. So you have to obey the rules or else it would, backfire to me. And I had to let her go. I had to sit there and let her cry. I had to send her away when she did not want it to go, when she physically was in pain. And it's so easy to say, like, oh, just don't let her go. But you can't because everything is documented, everything is evidence. And it's so hard, especially when you have someone who would write things about you and say bad things about you in court. And you still, obviously as a parent and co-parent, you want to respect the other person. So you don't want to talk anything bad about them. You want to respect them because they're half of your kid. And it's really honestly very complicated relationship and dynamic, especially when I am apart with my kid and she has to be there and I have to stay home. And it's like this push and pull. I really learned this idea of emptiness. I think a lot of people talk about empty nest syndromes, when your kids are like adults, they would move away, go to college, whatever. I had to learn that when my kid was 5. So when she goes, even though she cried and she sobbed, logically, there's nothing I can do about it. Like, couldn't interfered. So I had to really learn to have that switch in me where I can switch on Sherry. And when she comes back to me, I can switch on to mommy mode. And I really had to learn that. And I also understood that the more secure I feel, the more secure she would feel. So really building my self-identity and fulfill myself and gave myself comfort and kindness and compassion to really fill my own cup. Because I know that would be really important to her and ultimately that would affect her. And gosh, there's so much tears and anxiety from just years of lessons. Has it gotten easier? Yes, it has gotten easier. I'm happy to report that. But is it easy? No. Because your child is yours. Like I made her, right? I think it's still uncomfortable when my kid had to go to her dad's because I know that she didn't really want it to go, but also at the same time, I know that she found her way to survive there and to have her own fun. And she found a way to navigate that relationships. And I just really needed to respect that and really allowed her to navigate that on her own. But at the same time, understand what I need and enjoy my alone time as much as possible. Schedule time with friends or schedule time to do self care and just sleep and nap, and to really have the ability to kind of switch it back and forth as quickly as possible. So, these are the lessons that I have learned that, yeah, honestly, I probably couldn't see in the eye of the storm because everything was going on. It was a lot, it was too much, a lot of emotion. But reflecting back, I think I'm really grateful for all these difficult life lessons. So I invite you to reflect and think about what you have learned. And I love to hear from you. And remember, if you're having a tough time right now, just give yourself so much grace, so much compassion, and just know, everything will work out in the end. That's always going to be true, even if it's so hard at this very moment. So let yourself feel, but give yourself so much grace, so much kindness. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.